Good afternoon. Back on the West Coast. It's not that late. Here in Indy, we're 3 hours ahead of you, and I'm done with an exhausting day of the NFL Combine. And I still have to go out and party after this. That's just how it works. You have to go out to Prime 47 or wherever else and do the networking, do the drinking. But before that happens, we can talk the biggest 49ers-centric day of the Combine here in Indy. Thank the heavens that we got today, because now we finally have some substance, some real reporting to talk about. It's been a long month since the 49ers held their exit interviews after the NFC title game. And over the course of that loud month, we got an echo chamber of sorts. We got rumors being created to try to fill the void. And then people started tweeting those rumors, bouncing around those manufactured ideas. And they took on a life of their own, and it got really annoying. So I'm happy that we're here now after having talked with John Lynch for about 30 minutes today with new material. And I wrote the piece. It's up there, but it's posted in that chat section. I'll have it in the comments section up on The Athletic. You can subscribe now for $1 a month to The Athletic, so go ahead and do it. It's 3,000 words of 49ers goodness. There's a lot of new stuff, and we're going to go over some of it in this YouTube Live. So go ahead and subscribe to The Athletic, and if you're new to the live, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube as well, because as you know, I try to bring everything in video form, since a lot of you don't like to read, but a lot of you like to do both. And if you like to do both, you like the channel, because we're going to go through the article right here in video mode. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. But anyway, I showed up this morning. I had some really, really good food. I could show you my breakfast that I had before this big day. Here you go. This was, they call it the Bougie Benedict at the pastry shop, the Gallery Pastry Shop here in Indianapolis. So that was breakfast today. Yesterday's breakfast was also good. It was this other breakfast sandwich down here. And you could kind of see the pastry bar. I'll make this bigger for you guys. You can see the pastry bar behind me. And I had like the truffle breakfast sandwich here in Indianapolis, which it's taking a little while to load because I shot it in cinematic mode on the new iPhone. But it was really good. Everything at this place was on a croissant. So that was the fuel for the morning. And then we went straight to the convention center. And today, John Lynch spoke at 1:15. And after John Lynch spoke to the general media at the podium, there was a little breakout session. Got to talk to John Lynch, in a much more less frenzied atmosphere. For example, in John's first media session, Mike McDaniel was in the crowd, because Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, had just finished his big podium media session. And then he was just fooling around, because we know Mike's a funny guy. And he was actually in the big scrum of reporters. And John, unbeknownst to Mike McDaniel, was complimenting Mike and saying, somebody asked a question about Mike McDaniel, saying how great of a guy he is, how good of a coach Miami got. And then as soon as that compliment ended, somebody from the crowd yelled out, "F yeah, thanks, John." And it was Mike McDaniel, the Miami Dolphins head coach, former 49ers offensive coordinator. So that was a funny moment today, but it was a wild kind of scene, as it always is, in the main floor of the Combine. Then John splits off, and that's when we get, the goodies, right, in the 30-minute conversation. And that's what we're going to go through today. So hopefully this is kind of a primetime broadcast, right? What is it right now? It is 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Yeah, so 6 o'clock on the West Coast. It's a good time to go through the, 10 general points that I think are worthy of discussion, that we received some new information on regarding the 49ers today. So without further ado, number one, how might Garoppolo's shoulder surgery impact trade talks? This is obviously the biggie right now, because the flavor of the moment is, one of the 49ers going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. And we correctly assumed that talks would heat up at the NFL Combine. They indeed have. The 49ers are fielding offers for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if they're ready to pull the trigger on any yet, but they're certainly open to them. But then news came out on Tuesday that Jimmy Garoppolo was about to undergo surgery on his shoulder. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at the exact part of Garoppolo's shoulder that is undergoing surgery. John Lynch had a really specific term for it right here. Lynch said that the objective of Garoppolo's imminent surgery will be to repair capsule ligaments. that haven't fully healed in a month since the end of the 49ers season. So I looked up, did some research on capsule ligaments. So did Matt Barrows, my colleague. He actually has a separate article on this that you should check out. And essentially, what Lynch is saying checks out if you talk to medical experts, assuming that the capsule ligaments in Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder are not fully torn, and we know it's a shoulder sprain, so there might be a partial tear there, but as long as they're not just fully torn off the bone, then this is an injury that starts with rehab, typically, in the way that you treat it. And if rehab doesn't fully take after about a month, then you move to surgery. And that's exactly what happened in the case of Jimmy Garoppolo, NFC Championship game on January 30th. So then he, starts the rehab process. We're on March 2nd right now, and it was on March 1st. It was yesterday when word came that Garoppolo had opted for surgery. So essentially a month after the start of rehab, he said, something's still not quite right. We're going to go for the surgery to fix this. Now, when you look at similar surgeries in the past or similar injuries, because they don't always require surgery, Ryan Tannehill had one of these in 2018. He missed about 6 weeks. Because Garoppolo is actually going to have an incision from the surgery, it's going to take longer, and they're hoping late June, early July to be able to throw again. So you wonder how's that going to affect all these machinations, potential trade, all this and all that. And to that, you look at the recovery rate of such a surgery, and it's close to 100%, especially if Garoppolo is going to have, top-class physician doing this. So it's considered minor in that this is not something that's going to be disruptive in almost all certainty to Jimmy Garoppolo as far as his long-term ability to throw, and everything should be fixed by late June, early July. So they're considering the surgery minor, and John Lynch maintains that the teams that he's talked to do not seem in any way perturbed or derailed by this fact. And this is obviously the key to the whole thing. If teams thought that there's a 50% chance or even a 10% chance that Garoppolo would never be healthy again, I think that might put a real skewer into any trade talks. But that just is not the case. Right now, Lynch says that it's minor. Teams believe him, and the 49ers are proceeding as planned. So we'll see what ends up happening over the course of the next couple of days, over the next few weeks. But the truth of the matter is that the 49ers would really like to free themselves of the $27 million cap hit that Jimmy Garoppolo currently has on the books. If you're wondering about a potential release, which, I don't think would have been likely in any circumstance, but, some people thought maybe because of the shoulder injury, the 49ers will have to release Garoppolo. Well, because the 49ers qualified for the NFC title game in 2019, according to a clause in Garoppolo's contract, he vested a $7.5 million injury guarantee for both 2020 and 2021, or 2021 and 2022. Sorry, 2 years down the road. It was an interesting vesture in the contract because remember the 19 season, that NFC Championship game, that was still early in the deal, but Garoppolo had injury guarantees vest at the end of the deal in 2021 and 2022, $7.5 million in each season because of the accomplishment, because of reaching the NFC title game. And because of that, if the 49ers, this is purely hypothetical, if they decide to just release Jimmy Garoppolo outright right now or anytime before he's fully healthy because he's about to undergo surgery, they will owe him $7.5 million. They'll owe him that injury guarantee. Now, remember, news that this injury was still lingering and that he would need surgery, it was assumed that Garoppolo would either cost about $27 million to keep or $1.4 million in dead money to cut. But if you cut him, you're going to have to pay the dead money, which is $1.4 million, plus the $7.5 million injury guarantee, which all leads me to say that it is very much in the 49ers' interest, if they are indeed moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo, to trade him, because you don't want to have to pay that injury guarantee. And if they do trade him, there are offsets to that injury guarantee. Other teams, the recipient would have to pick up that injury guarantee, and he's going to be making more than $7.5 million. So this is only something that actually matters if Garoppolo is not traded. But of course, everybody expects Garoppolo to be traded because there was even more praise for Trey Lance today. So what exactly does all the praise for Trey Lance mean? Well, first, let me read the quote that really stood out to me about Trey Lance. This is from John Lynch, and I highlighted it on the screen. You could see the development, the confidence. You're on scout team, and oftentimes you're asked, hey, go ahead, throw this ball in there, assuming there isn't a big chance of success. But then Trey would, and it would still get in there. I think he attacked it in the right way. I keep talking about his mental capabilities. He can handle a lot. I think he's just got that makeup that the great ones do. We can only hope that he can be like Patrick Mahomes or anything close to that, but he's going to get his chance to go show that. That last line. The 49ers have stopped short of delivering an airtight announcement that they're going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo and that Trey Lance is going to be the starter in 2022. But John Lynch just got about 3 steps closer to that. And when he said at the end of his quote that Trey Lance is going to have a chance to show that he's like Patrick Mahomes, I mean, that's pretty damn close to saying the keys are here for Trey Lance. Go drive the offense. So many of John Lynch's comments about Jimmy Garoppolo and his accomplishments seem to be happening in the past tense nowadays, or something like the present perfect, something that kind of throws all that behind the 49ers. And there's so much talk about Trey Lance getting increased responsibility and increased opportunity moving forward. So that's what I make about all this, praise for Trey Lance. It is showing accurately what the 49ers feel about him. And if you look at the leaked practice footage, if you just watch weeks 5 and week 17, you saw that Lance made a lot of progress over the course of the regular season. You hear the 49ers saying that he made a lot of progress, even though he wasn't playing behind the scenes. And we already all knew that he had seismic physical abilities. So it only makes sense that Trey Lance would be in a position now to much more sustainably attack a chance at the starting job than as a very raw rookie last year. Now, that being said, this is going to be a crucial offseason for Trey Lance. Still has much learning in front of him. So we'll see how he handles it. But all indications right now, all the praise headed his way, indicates that the 49ers are about ready to turn a chapter. They're going to have to turn the page on because, again, Trey Lance cost $7 million on the cap this year. Jimmy Garoppolo cost $27. Combined, they cost over $34 million, and the 49ers don't have room. They also have 20 or so players left to sign. So you got to free up the space somewhere. And the whole idea of long-term sustainability that I've been talking about for 2 years now. I was talking about last January, I said draft Trey Lance because he could work under Jimmy Garoppolo. Because you do that, because if you develop Trey into what you need him to be, then Jimmy Garoppolo's money can come off of the books, and the 49ers can more sustainably move and build their roster moving forward. So that's what all the praise for Trey Lance means. I think it means the 49ers are about ready to turn the page. All right, number 3 today. What's the latest on the coaching staff, including Bobby Turner? Well, 49ers running backs coach Bobby Turner underwent knee surgery last year, and he's scheduled to undergo another knee surgery this offseason. And after he underwent that surgery last year, he felt that he didn't have enough time to rehab, and it was all kind of a rush because Bobby Turner is one of the hardest working guys around. He calls prospects hundreds of times. He's famously meticulous. Today, John Lynch joked about this, but he said that Bobby Turner will literally log and keep track of how many rings it takes a draft prospect to pick up when he calls his cell phone. And he'll remember when a guy doesn't pick up his calls. And Bobby Turner makes sure that you're punctual to meetings or to Zoom calls as it has been over the last couple of years. I mean, this is an old school coach. He's 72 years old. He works his ass off in the offseason, and he's obviously got a hell of a pedigree and a hell of a track record. But he just felt that after one of his knee surgeries last year, it was a little too much for him. So Bobby Turner has decided to take the 2022 season off. But according to John Lynch, Bobby Turner has made it very clear that he fully expects to return to the 49ers in the 2023 season. Now, this goes against some of the conspiracy theories online that thought that, Bobby Turner just didn't want to be part of a rebuild, whatever that meant. But no, Bobby Turner loves the coach. He loves to be on the staff. He's just taken a year-long medical leave of absence to get that second surgery. And that makes the 49ers hiring of Anthony Lynn, who's the former coach of the Chargers, make all that much more sense because Anthony Lynn was a running back for the 49ers first in the 90s, but then later on under Mike Shanahan and Bobby Turner, running backs coach for Denver in 1997 to 1999. So Anthony Lynn knows the Bobby Turner system, and Anthony Lynn has since developed into one of the game's more respected minds as far as the schematics of the ground attack, of the run game. And guess who else the 49ers have also lost this offseason? The main architect of their run game under Shanahan in Mike McDaniel, who obviously is now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So with the hiring of Anthony Lynn, you kill two birds with one stone. You have a run game architect to help take the burden off of Shanahan after losing Mike McDaniel, and you have somebody who's going to be able to coach the running backs. Both of those things are very, very important. So the 49ers, that's the first kind of key staff member that they brought in. Counting Turner and then the 7 other assistants who departed elsewhere, the 49ers have lost 8 assistants. And Kyle Shanahan is back in Santa Clara, not at the Combine right now, finalizing new hires for the coaching staff to replace those 8 assistants. So Lynn is the headliner, but the 49ers still have to bring in a special teams coach. They still have to bring in a new quarterbacks coach. And Shanahan's working on all that. And I don't know if they're going to bring in Bobby Slowick or if they're going to go to a guy like John Beck. We'll find out next week because John Lynch said today that should be finalized and officialized and sent out next week. So that's the latest on the 49ers coaching staff. They are happy that they've become kind of a destination to come and coach at. People want to work with Kyle. Just you see the track record that Shanahan's staff has. It's producing promotions for these coaches. When 8 guys leave and 7 of them are taking higher jobs elsewhere, that means that your staff is respected. So if you're a coach in the NFL or at the college level, why wouldn't you want to be part of the 49ers operation if it has a strong track record of developing you? So it's a double-edged sword, right? The success will cause you to lose coaches, but it will also allow you to be a more attractive destination for new coaches to come. So we'll see next week when the 49ers do release their full list of new coaches, who they were able to attract to Kyle Shanahan's staff in this big, big season of turnover. Number 4, how are various 49ers receivers recovering from, or how are various 49ers recovering from their injuries? Not receivers. I think all the receivers are healthy right now as we speak. So why don't we talk about the 49ers who ended the most recent season on injured reserve? One is Mike McGlinchey, torn quad. 49ers are happy with his progress. Another is Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle, torn ACL. 49ers are also happy with his progress. In the case of Kinlaw, he had the same surgeon as Nick Bosa did, Neil Elatrache, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was actually the Rams team doctor, but is an ACL specialist, perhaps the most renowned ACL specialist. Did the surgery perfectly on Bosa, and by all accounts did the surgery well on Kinlaw. And both Bosa and Kinlaw started the rehab in Orange County at the same facility. Kinlaw has since moved back up to the Bay Area, and he and McGlinchey now are working with the same specialist in the rehab at the 49ers facility. These were both obviously serious surgeries, but the 49ers obviously hope to get both of these players back. And right now, the track seems to be good, especially when you talk about Kinlaw. That's been kind of a torturous up and down ride for the 49ers. Well, John Lynch said that he finally has a smile on his face because he's not in pain all the time anymore. So just think about that. Throughout his first 2 seasons, because of this chronic ACL issue, Javon Kinlaw, big dude, right? A lot of weight on his knees, was hurting. And obviously it hurt his mood. It wasn't a good situation because he would be able to play a game and he'd be out. He'd be able to practice today. He'd be out. And he wasn't ever at 100% capacity. Well, now the thought is that the 49ers have made the right decision to have shut Kinlaw down last year, let him take full care of what's wrong with that knee, which actually was an ACL injury, and they think he can now unleash his full potential. And that ties directly into potential 49ers offseason plans because you might have a little glut of defensive tackles. Eric Armstead moved inside next to DJ Jones this past offseason. That's obviously where Javon Kinlaw plays. Now, Armstead only moved inside because Kinlaw wasn't playing anymore and he was, sidelined on injured reserve with his surgery. Assuming Kinlaw comes back healthy and is the force that the 49ers dreamed that he'd be when they drafted him in the first round back in 2020, where does Armstead play? And how badly do they want DJ Jones, who's a pending free agent, back? And today, my kind of gut feeling, based on what John Lynch said, he really thought that DJ Jones might have priced himself out of the 49ers range. And it's totally possible that somebody's going to pay $10 million for DJ Jones. And the 49ers just won't be able to expect it. To me, it almost seems more likely that the 49ers don't re-sign DJ than if they do. But it's clear that they would like to if all things were possible. Because John even said today, boy, it would sure be nice if we had Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead, and DJ Jones, all three guys. But if you only have two, then it's going to be Armstead and Javon Kinlaw. But Armstead's flexibility gives the 49ers options, but I think they're almost necessary options for this defensive line to be dominant. So, I wonder, because I'm going to talk about Laken Tomlinson in a bit, but if it comes down to Laken Tomlinson or DJ Jones, who do you prioritize? Based on the conversation with John Lynch today, I feel that they're going to prioritize Laken Tomlinson. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the wrong move. I think probably the right move, all things considered, because that offensive line needs more help. But it's a tough move. There's an opportunity cost to everything. And if they're picking Laken Tomlinson or DJ Jones, O-line or D-line, oh boy, you're putting a lot of eggs in the Kinlaw basket. You're counting on Kinlaw to be absolutely healthy and dominant, because otherwise you've taken a step back on the interior defensive line, which with Armstead this year next to DJ Jones, they led the year in run defense. They were one of the best pass rushes in the league. It's so important to be strong up the middle, to be stout at that defensive tackle position. And it's going to be an uphill battle based on how well DJ Jones played this year to retain him. So I'm very, very curious to see what happens. But today, man, maybe it's 51-49 in favor of not retaining DJ Jones as far as probabilities go. It feels close to me, but I wouldn't be as optimistic if I were a 49ers fan like you guys watching. I wouldn't be as optimistic about Jones as I am about Laken Tomlinson based on what John Lynch said today. All right, number 5. How do the 49ers plan to construct their interior defensive line? Well, I always love when I put up a note that I just talked about for a few minutes. So this is a good opportunity for me to take a drink of water because I've been talking for 22 minutes straight. I just told you how the 49ers plan to construct their interior defensive line. Now, I was planning to go from 4 into 5 on the notes, but I just naturally did it because I just wrote this article. So I guess I'm so well versed in my head in it, but that's how they plan to construct the interior of the defensive line. DJ Jones is the big question. So we fast forward to number 6. Will Mack be back? Alex Mack. This is good news for the 49ers because Mack is going to be entering his 14th season. And ever after he finished his 10th season in the league, Alex Mack has done the same thing every offseason. He has said, I'm going to consider retirement, but if I feel well enough to play, I'm going to go out there and give it one more year. So far, every single time since that year 10, Alex Mack has indeed decided to come back and play another year. The 49ers were worried that this would be the time that he didn't say that he'd retire and that they'd be another bind at center. Well, Alex Mack's about to embark on a vacation to Ireland. He takes off any day now to Ireland. And he's been in contact with the 49ers brass, with John Lynch. And John seems to really think that Alex Mack is leaning in the right direction toward being interested in playing for the 49ers again in 2022. Supposedly, Mack had a lot of fun with, that was a good 49ers locker room this past year. And the 49ers are obviously very interested in having him back. He's under a 3-year contract, so they don't want him to retire just yet. And in that case, we talk about the other machinations for the O-line. That's where, if they can keep Mack at center, they can re-sign Laken Tomlinson for something probably just shy of, $10 million a year. It sounds to me that the 49ers can keep a lot of those key pieces intact on the offensive line, and then they can turn their attention to fortifying the weak parts of it, which was the right side, right? So today, John Lynch talked about Aaron Banks, and he said, a lot of people think that just because Aaron Banks didn't play this year that, he's a bust, that he's not going to be a good player. And this is what Lynch said. I'm just telling you, I'm repeating the message. He said quite the contrary. He thought that Aaron Banks made massive strides this year, working into a new body, getting ready to be more athletic at the NFL level. And he thinks that he's going to be ready to go to really compete for that starting job in a way that he didn't compete in this 2021 season come 2022. So if that's the case, the 49ers will have a chance to upgrade right guard. And I think I asked about Daniel Brunskill today, and the 49ers really value Daniel Brunskill. I think they're going to try to retain him as a restricted free agent. It's going to be a smaller move, but I think you fit that one in. And then he becomes a utility lineman of sorts where he could play tackle, guard, or center. He's really your 6th or 7th offensive lineman. But just as it was last year, I think it's a huge key that Banks grabs right guard, that the 49ers obviously re-sign Laken Tomlinson so they don't leak oil at left guard. And then obviously I talked about Mike McGlinchey earlier. They like where he's at as far as his recovery from the torn quad, but they need him back up to speed at right tackle. So maybe you re-sign Tom Compton. So you have both Brunskill and Compton potentially as linemen 6 and 7. But I know that's a lot of moving pieces, but the pieces do have to move if you want to get better. And the 49ers offensive line does need to get better. So I think that re-signing Tomlinson, developing the hell out of Banks and making sure that he does take that next step, re-signing Compton and hoping that McGlinchey's rehab continues going well. I think those are all necessary kind of developments for the 49ers. And that's before we even consider the draft, where I do believe that there should be a priority on bringing in some rookies. Now, a rookie that you could bring in if you're the 49ers is a center. Assuming that Alex Mack is indeed playing for them in 2022, why not bring in a center, a rookie who could really have an apprenticeship under Alex Mack, who was the NFL center of the decades in the 2010s. And then if Mack next season goes to Ireland and decides to never come back and decides to not play in 2023, then you have that center who's been learning under him, and he can take over the job in 2023. Because we saw how important center is and how devastating it is if that position is lacking in 2020. That's why they went out and got Mack. So now they need to make sure there's a succession plan for Mack because he's going to be 37 next year. And he's already mulling retirement every single offseason. So you have to be ready for the future. Man, maybe Brunskill is a player they're considering in that role. But God, I think having a plus center really unlocks Shanahan's scheme. There's a reason why the Falcons went out and got Mack after Shanahan joined Atlanta as the offensive coordinator there. And there's a reason why in this situation with the 49ers, they went out and got Mack in 2021. So those are the machinations, the O-line. A lot has to go right because you need a better offensive line than the 49ers had down the stretch of 2021 for Garoppolo. You're going to need a better one for Trey Lance. The release is not as fast for Lance. The processing speed is not as fast for Lance. Again, he's a youngster. It's going to take a while for him to get up to veteran level on some of this stuff. You have to set the table for him so he doesn't get destroyed back then. All right, number 8. Is there a timeline for potentially lucrative contract extensions? No, there is not a timeline for potentially lucrative contract extensions, and we're talking Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel. Now, this is interesting trivia. Deebo Samuel's agent's Tory Dandy. He is also the agent of A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, 2 other star receivers who are in line for lucrative extensions this offseason. So John Lynch said, boy, Tory's going to be a busy guy this offseason because DK Metcalf's going to get paid. A.J. Brown, who destroyed the 49ers this year on December 23rd, is going to get paid. And obviously Deebo Samuel is the first player in NFL history to receive 1,500 yards and rush for 500 yards in a season. He's going to get paid too. And Lynch kind of joked today. They say, maybe Deebo can beat him to the punch. So that way the 49ers don't have to keep on trying to reset the market after DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown get their deals. But Lynch also acknowledged that it won't be easy to get Deebo to go first because he is such a hot topic around the NFL right now. I mean, you talk to all these prospects at the NFL Combine and you ask them, who do you model your game after? Half of them are saying Deebo Samuel. I mean, the guy, you have to understand how the guy took football by storm, playing both running back and receiver. Everybody wants to be Deebo Samuel. Everybody wants to be the do-everything weapon. Everybody's toasting the Deebo Samuel here in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. So that doesn't really help the 49ers as far as contract talks go because Deebo's got some leverage this offseason, right? So, they would love for Deebo to go first ahead of Metcalf, ahead of Brown, but there's a chance that he goes last and he could say, look, I could be a running back and these guys can't. And the 49ers have to pay a lot. So they have to budget for all this stuff. Now, one feather that the 49ers might have in their cap, this might interest you. Fred Warner, on his rookie deal, entering year 4, initially had a cap hit of about $3.86 million, which is obviously not a lot. Deebo Samuel's around the same amount. He's in the 3s right now. Fred Warner, after his extension, had a cap hit for this past season of $3.86 million. It was unchanged before and after the extension because Parag Marathe, he's a wizard with the numbers. He was able to find a way to give Warner and his new contract 2 different bonuses, a guaranteed bonuses. So a signing bonus and a roster bonus. They didn't kick in until the next year to spread the cap hits out over like 5 or 6 years in creative ways. And then he lowered his base salary to the minimum in 2021 so that Fred Warner's cap hit didn't get any bigger. Now, think about this. If the 49ers have so much crazy business that's supposedly going to be expensive to do this offseason, what if Parag, is able to structure a deal for Deebo Samuel that's like Fred Warner's, where they pay Deebo and he gets his big signing bonus, but they keep his cap hit the same this year? I don't know if it's going to be possible with Deebo, but I'm saying they did it with Fred. And if they do that, then that's going to open up a whole lot of opportunities for the 49ers. Because I'm sure, I hope a lot of you have done our roster builder here, and I will open up the roster builder as we speak. This is what it looks like. You have a chance to cut, trade Jimmy Garoppolo. In fact, I should probably change the option on Jimmy Garoppolo because cutting him would be more expensive. So we'll just do trade on here. You're seeing me You're seeing me edit the spreadsheet in real time. There you go. You have the option to give guys extensions. You have the option to cut guys. You have the option to draft guys. So if you're following along here, you would see just how beneficial keeping Deebo Samuel's cap hit as low as possible is. A lot of people have said, this is so hard. I don't know how I'm building this roster. And yeah, that's the same kind of calculus that the 49ers are dealing with. So take a look at this. Maybe you'll, be able to grasp a little bit better what's at stake here. But in the case of Deebo Samuel, I'm wondering what the 49ers will be able to do contract-wise to keep that hit low. And I guess, same thing with Nick Bosa, because he's also going to be in line for an extension this offseason. I just wouldn't expect those to be all too imminent because both of those guys are coming off such good years that they're going to have plenty of time to wait and sit back and, make the 49ers come in with a really good offer. So it's going to be really important to see how the 49ers structure these deals. Number 9, we're almost there, plowing through this. Why did John Lynch turn down big TV money? Well, according to the New York Post, last week, John Lynch sat down with executives from Amazon. Amazon's going to start broadcasting some NFL games on a regular basis, and it was offered about 3 times as much as his current salary. Now, Lynch is estimated to make $5 million a year with the 49ers. So if that report is true, and it seemed that Lynch verified it today, he was set to make about $15 million per year if he agreed to return to broadcasting, and this time for Amazon. So, I think most people would seriously consider taking a raise from $5 million to $15 a year and changing jobs. That's insane, right? That's a boatload of cash. But John Lynch did not take that, and here's why. I'll read straight from the horse's mouth. I came to this business because I was pulled by the opportunity to compete. I think we've got a real good team, and I think we've got an opportunity to get better. Ultimately, I made the decision. My family made the decision. This is where my heart is right now. And then he paused for a bit, and he was like, but that is a lot of money. I can't believe they're paying that much money for people to talk football. So I thought that kind of verified that John Lynch was offered close to $15 million. But you got to love it. He's a competitor. And to him, there's value in being able to compete and not just sit up in the broadcast booth and talk about the game. So he feels the 49ers are close to really unlocking something special. I mean, we've seen a special run twice in the past 3 years. And the Trey Lance era is probably among us. So maybe the 49ers can take that next step. Either way, so much for the conspiracy theories that say that the 49ers are a sinking ship, that coaches want to leave for a rebuild. I mean, their general manager just got offered a raise to leave from $5 million to $15 million, and he said no. So the opportunity to stay aboard during this rebuild for the 49ers is worth $10 million at least to John Lynch, at least. So I don't think it's a rebuild. I think the 49ers are reloading, and I think that their brass is really excited about it because they've done a sustainable job building the roster. Another reason to take a look at this spreadsheet, because I think you'll better appreciate where the 49ers are as far as roster construction when we go to that spreadsheet. I'll put that into the comments section right now if you want to go try 90-man roster. By the way, $1 a month for The Athletic. And any of these articles will get you that deal. So I just posted the spreadsheet link. And then at the top of the chat section, you can go and check out the link to this article that's on the screen about John Lynch. That brings us to the final point. How do the 49ers view this year's draft? This, to me, was revelatory. The 2021 draft in the 49ers' eyes was top-heavy. They had a lot of premier picks, but it wasn't very deep. They think this 2022 draft doesn't have the most premier picks. It's a little thinner at the top, but it's really, really deep. And they think this is a product of COVID, because during COVID, a lot of guys decided to return to school. So because guys decided to return to school, you only had the very top flight guys going to the draft, meant it was top heavy, bad depth. Now that guys have returned to school but have now graduated a year later, you have that depth has just filled out. But the top guys all left early, right? And the 49ers might be perfectly situated, according to John Lynch, to tackle the challenges of this 2022 draft and to embrace the benefits that it presents. This is the list of 49ers draft picks. They don't have a first rounder. They have 9 picks ranging from the second round to the 7th. And then, of course, they could sign undrafted rookies. But those 9 picks combined will cost the team $7.7 million to sign. That's combined. So when you talk about a team that is up against the salary cap, the most efficient way financially to squeeze players in is through not only draft picks, but lower round draft picks. Because lower round draft picks are cheaper. It's slotted by position. First round draft picks cost more money. You see Trey Lance is a $7 million cap hit all by himself this year. 9 49ers rookies will have a cumulative cap hit that is about the same size as Trey Lance's. So that's efficiency. Get 9 players for the price of 1. But it's only efficient if those 9 players, you pick them correctly and you develop them well. So John Lynch said that the 49ers feel that they are in more advantageous position than essentially every other team in the NFL because of how well their coaching staff and their personnel staff works with their analytics staff to target the right players. Because if you do that right, you're going to pick guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round that you can develop, that you can turn into stars for cheap. Think about the track record. George Kittle, 2017. Go forward. Elijah Mitchell, 2021, 6th round, 2021. George Kittle was 5th round, 2017. DJ Jones, 6th round, 2017. Javon Jennings, 7th round, 2020. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The 49ers have gotten significant production from lower round players. And John Lynch, when I asked him about it, credited the research and development analytics staff, credited the fact that the coaching staff is involved in the draft process, and obviously got to credit their own scouts. So the 49ers, they've made hay with these lower round draft picks, and they might be perfectly set up because this draft, they have a lot of lower round picks, and that's where the talent is in this draft. So buckle up and stay tuned because it's very important that the 49ers hit on this draft, and we'll pay close attention to how effectively they might be able to do that. All right, I see that we have a lot of viewers on. This is the most viewers we'd had since the aftermath of the NFC Championship game. Because of that, we get a little question and answer time. So let's take a look at them. Pour in your questions. I'll be drinking my water for the next few seconds. Yeah, you kind of missed the point. Pettis and CJ Beathard weren't lower round draft picks. I always like when people like to criticize a point that I make with a completely incorrect point of their own. I was just saying the 49ers do a good job developing lower round draft picks, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round. Well, Dante Pettis was a 2nd rounder and CJ Beathard was a 3rd rounder. So where can we kind of hit like the buzzer for the wrong button on that one? Yes, everybody like and subscribe. This is a good point. I do think that Kendrick Bourne had some energy that the 49ers missed for a while, but Javon Jennings is bringing a lot of that KB energy, and he's bringing it with more of a mean streak. So I think the 49ers got it back down the stretch with Javon Jennings when he really emerged this past season. And I think you saw it in that team-wide swagger. They had a different type of swagger than years before, but good stuff. All right. Yeah, a little comment about Fred Warner. Let's see. Any more questions? Should we sign John Ross for a speed element? That's interesting. How about Evan Ingram at a reduced rate to add a formidable dual tight end look to our arsenal? Wasn't Ross a teammate with Evan Ingram with the Giants this year? I don't recall him doing anything. At the end of you want the speed threat, but the 49ers had the speed threat against the Cardinals when they were playing with Travis Benjamin and they had Trey Lance in there, and the Cardinals guarded it. It wasn't like Travis Benjamin was burning him downfield. The offensive line needs to be good enough to block for some of these guys to get open downfield. Now, one of the nicer bombs and deep passes, go routes the 49ers threw was with Garoppolo to Brandon Ayuk in the NFC Championship game. And then Garoppolo also hit Samuel deep in that Bears game. But both of those plays had good protection. So protection is going to be really important for the team to have enough time on some of those throws downfield. Yeah, I saw what DJ Reed tweeted, but I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze every single tweet. He could be talking about something totally different. Shout out to DJ Reed, though. He's from Bakersfield, fellow Valley guy. I like DJ Reed. So, I mean, he could be talking about other stuff in his life. So, before we obsess over cryptic tweets and get ourselves blocked by Deebo Samuel, we'll probably just hold back a little bit and figure it out. Figure it all out. That's all that we need to do to be responsible in our reporting of this team. All right, guys. Thank you for following along. I really appreciate you. And I will talk to you all soon. It's been a nice long show, over 40 minutes. Subscribe to the channel. It's been good from Indianapolis. Maybe I'll come on live one more time after the bars tonight. Maybe not. We'll see. Maybe I'll go swimming now before I have to go out. Man, it was a long day. Anyway, subscribe to The Athletic. Subscribe to the channel. You guys are all great. Even those of you who I pick on a little bit. It's all in good fun. This is sports talk, so you got to do it. Everybody take care.